Thank you very much for joining us on the Photo Flunky Show, episode 100. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about ourselves, 100 episodes of the Photo Flunky Show. Thank you very much for joining us on the Photo Flunky Show. My name is William Beem.
My name is Lee Beem.
We are really happy to come up with our 100th episode because basically it means we kind of hung in there for a while, and we haven't really celebrated too many milestones here, but I'm actually really very happy that we got this far.
Yes, because the 100's got 2 zeros.
Yes, well, there you go. You can't get better than that.
Yeah.
Unless you get like 3 or 4 zeros.
No, wait, we're not there yet.
Before we begin, I want to let you know that show notes are going to be available at williambeam.com/episode 100. And of course, you can find links to this, subscribe to the show there, or you can go to photoflunky.com and there's a player there. You can listen to this show or any other, and also find some links to subscribe. And I've got a little discount coupon code for you. If you're interested in Mac Fun software, which is becoming Skylum. They got a new name, Skylum. But right now, my coupon code is same as my last name, Beem, as B as in boy, E-E-M. And easy way to get there is go to williambeam.com/MacFun. And I guess I'll have to make one also now for williambeam.com/Skylum. That's not there yet, but it will be probably sometime shortly after this comes out.
What a strange name.
I don't know what Skylum comes from, but I understand the idea because they started off making Mac software, and it was only Mac software. Now they've grown, and they're making Windows versions of Luminar and Aurora HDR. And it's actually a good move. I'm happy to see that Windows users can get to use this software as well, and that's why we've got the coupon code, so now more people can take advantage of it and save $10 off of Aurora, $10 off of Luminar, or 10% off of some of their other products. I don't know where Skylum comes from. I'm going to have to write them a letter and ask them how that name came about.
I'm always curious, like how people come up with names.
At any rate, coupon code is Beem, just like my last name. 100 episodes of the Photo Flunky Show. The obvious question is, why in the world did I start doing this?
Do you remember? I wasn't here in the beginning. Well, I kind of was, but I wasn't on the show.
You were around me, but you weren't on the show yet. It wasn't until episode 15 that you joined.
Oh, is that okay?
What happened is I started off doing the Photo Flunky Show by myself, and I was doing 3 episodes per week. I was doing Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and honestly, that was a really hard thing to try and keep up.
Yeah.
It was going along, but I realized just listening to my voice alone, I guess I like it better when I can hear someone else's voice and there's a little play back and forth.
Especially his wife.
Yes, I love my wife and I love her voice. But you came along in episode 15 and you were talking about what you did with basically a walkthrough of an assignment, because you kind of had an assignment for our other site, Orlando Local. You were going to Epcot and for the Flower and Garden Festival.
Yeah, that's right. Uh-huh.
Do you remember what that felt like doing that episode, or when you were doing the assignment?
Oh, the assignment I really enjoyed. It was pretty different to how I'd done things before, but I felt like I had a lot of freedom because usually I'd gone and taken my photos. There was always somebody with me, and when you're doing something like that, it is sometimes easier with your camera and everything to just move without making sure you're keeping a pack of people together.
It really is interesting, the different ways that you can go out and take your photos. Whether you're doing it just for travel and snapshots, whether you're doing it for an assignment, or if you're into serious art, or maybe some people do these projects like maybe a 365 project or whatever length of time they want to do. The reason for your photography really does have an impact upon the way you're taking your photos.
It does, but also going alone or going with a group and what kind of group you're with at the time actually affects the way that people view you and how you're treated there. And when I say treated, I don't mean, you're going to get treated badly. But I find that if I go out to the park with Tove with a camera, I'm a mom with a camera. I've got some practical issues that make it more difficult because I've got to keep an eye on, I used to have to keep an eye on a younger child. She's older now. I still have to see where she is or let her know where I'm going to stop.
Right.
I found a lot of freedom doing it on my own, but I also found that when I'm on my own, people don't give you quite the same courtesy because you're not there with a kid or you're not there with a family. So suddenly I wasn't there taking family photos. It was somebody alone with a camera as a photographer, and therefore we are here to enjoy the park. So we get first dibs on everything, and you wait in line. People regard you differently depending on how you present yourself, as an individual, as a group with the same camera.
It's absolutely true, and it depends on where you are. And that's one of the reasons why on a recent trip we went off to Las Vegas, and we decided that we were going to go there only doing mobile photography. That's both with iPhones, smartphone cameras. We brought a GoPro, which we honestly didn't use, I think, more than once.
I don't know. I didn't even take it off.
I used it on, I think, on the tram for a video.
Oh.
And then we had a little Canon point and shoot, which really does a great job. We use that for both video and for still photos, and with a little tripod. And I found it really easy to use, and I was quite happy with it.
I think I just stuck with my phone. I'm trying to think if I even used the little camera. I do like that little camera. I don't know if I picked it up to use for myself on that trip. I don't think I did. I think I just used my phone this last time.
Did it cover everything you needed, or did you find places that were maybe you wish you had a DSLR?
There were a lot of times I wished I had a DSLR, but also the trade-off is the inconvenience. And I mean, it was pretty crowded the first few days we were there. I would not have ventured out with a DSLR because it would have been cumbersome. You always win some, you lose some, depending on how you're shooting. The iPhone gave me more wins than losses, I feel, over a DSLR. The quality, there's going to be a trade-off. There were some little hiccups and frustrations, but yeah, for the most part, I could do what I wanted to do.
And that's one of the things that I keep coming back to saying in photography is it is a series of compromises. You can never find something that is absolutely perfect. I love my DSLR, but it is big and heavy. I can get my highest quality photos with a DSLR, but it's also going to weigh several pounds, and I've got to lug that around with me. It's big, it's bulky, and everybody looks at you when you're taking photos with a DSLR. Nobody really pays attention to you when you hold up an iPhone or a little point and shoot camera.
Well, you just like everybody else. The other thing where an iPhone came in really useful was there were times where we'd stand on pedestrian bridges, and I'd want to take a photo down, over the street or going down the streets, with the city lights and things on the side. There are these little gaps in the kind of perspex barrier on the outside of the bridge. Now, you don't want to take a photo through glass or perspex because, first of all, they usually get dirty from fingerprints, and they also get reflection and glare on them. With an iPhone, there are tiny little gaps, and you can actually just position the lens so that it's between those, and you're not taking a picture through glass. You could never do that with a big DSLR lens, or even a point and shoot camera lens wouldn't, be able to pierce its way through that little gap.
The fact that we were able to do this on mobile meant that we could also be social with the photos as we were taking them.
Yeah, that was a big plus for me.
It was a lot easier than trying to download photographs from a DSLR to a computer and then send them back up. With Instagram, it's a pain having to then sync it up to your phone and post it mobilely there. There are modern cameras now that have built-in Wi-Fi where you can actually transfer the photos over directly to your iPhone, and that's a nice convenience that I don't have myself, but it shows kind of where the direction is going. People want to be able to share immediately. I thought that was a nice touch, the fact that we set up an Instagram account called Beam Pics. Just as we were going, we were sharing photos, and we didn't follow that many people, but it was surprisingly how much interaction we got just sharing some interesting photos in Las Vegas and putting in maybe 3 or 4 hashtags on each one.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And really what we were talking about right there with just this recent visit to Las Vegas and experimenting, doing mobile photography and doing social stuff kind of fits in with the way the podcast has transformed itself from when I was doing things on my own. Sometimes I was talking about Lightroom, sometimes I was talking about Flash and triggers and stuff like that. I think that we have migrated more toward discussing creative photography topics, social sharing and media topics, and things that are more along that line.
Yeah. People are looking for things that are more versatile, and above all, I think people want things that are instant. Everyone in the world wants instant gratification. We've got a generation that's growing up where that's all they know. Mobile phone photography gives you that luxury, and there are some other platforms that let you do that, but this is the way, to reach more people or to help more people.
And that was something that I'm looking back at, some of our previous episodes, like going back to episode 17, where to share your photos online. And it wasn't just social media. We were talking about online portfolios, business sites, and your website. And we kind of had a nice discussion of each one, the pros and cons of them.
Yeah.
I just really like the fact that we're kind of not talking about not so much technical items. There are a few technical items, I think, on our previous episodes, but more or less it is about the experience of being a photographer.
Yeah, it's practical stuff. It's, really getting in there and doing it.
Yeah, and some of that is for practical. Like back in episode 20, we had a show on how to travel with your photography gear. Not only the airline travel, what to do in the hotel room to keep things safe, what to do when you're walking around, and the types of theft or things that would happen. But basically, you're going to be on the go in a strange place. You want to make sure you can protect yourself and your gear.
That's true.
Looking on the creative side, we discuss things that work for us. We're also really not afraid to talk about things that are just foul ups or screw ups.
Yeah, because that's life.
Well, it also, I think that helps people. One, nobody's perfect. I don't know a single photographer, no matter how good they are, that doesn't make a mistake. They just don't show them.
Well, that's fair enough.
But that's kind of our job. It's just talk about the things that screw
well, it's
up.
not that. It's not even showing off your mistakes. It's just admitting that things don't always go right. I don't have a problem with people not showing their mistakes and putting their best work forward. That's absolutely great. But I do have issues with people who try and make out like they never have bad shots or never do anything that isn't perfect. Yeah.
It just doesn't happen that way. Everybody misfires. Everybody has a bad shot. I've seen people that are so meticulous with their work. They've taken a shot that I look at and thought, wow, that's really nice. And yet they're still looking at it and saying, I don't like this highlight here. I don't like something about that. And they're still crafting their photo to put it together to make something better. You see the finished result and it's glorious. But the shots that they had to go through to get there,
yeah,
those are the ones that you don't see. And that's not necessarily a mistake. That is refining what you're doing. But as far as mistakes, we've got plenty of our own. And we actually had an episode on that, episode 41, photography foul-ups and how to recover from them. If you think you're screwing up, go listen to some of the ones that we've screwed up, and maybe it'll give you some ideas. You've really gotten into, since we've been doing the podcast, is food photography.
Yes, and it all started in Las Vegas.
It really did, because we went there on our honeymoon, and you kind of got, well, one, I think you visited some restaurants that were very, very different than what you've experienced in the past, and you really loved what you saw.
Also, I think that was the first time I'd taken a trip without my big camera. And I was looking around at the city and the big lights. I was kind of frustrated that, from a photography perspective, I think if I'd been thinking in that mindset, it would have frustrated me. I just immediately dismissed taking any photos that were, that I deemed better with a DSLR. Food photography, it's kind of easy. You're sitting at the table, you got the stuff right there. A lot of the times we're sitting where we had some good window light or we're sitting outside, and it worked. I just started playing around with it.
It's also changed the way we try to enjoy going out for a meal, because we're not working necessarily with a kitchen and a cook and a food stylist to bring something in. We're not doing commercial work this way. We're trying to just simply take photos that you might take when you're traveling, and you want to make the best out of something that you're enjoying.
Yeah, we just document the experience.
But what we've learned that we're doing is we're very particular about where we sit now.
Yes.
Because I know you love to sit outside.
I do.
To me, that's not always the best place because they have the most uncomfortable chairs. You get really wonderful light.
Yeah, but about the uncomfortable chairs, you're the one who said you have to suffer for your art.
I have said that. I don't know why I'm saying that. Well, wait a minute. Why do I have to suffer for your art?
Well, because we're married.
Oh, okay. I can't argue with that kind of logic.
For better or worse.
Yes, we are. But we've noticed that we'll order things and we'll sit in good light. We'll order things that we think might be interesting.
Yes, we do.
And it's just all about kind of coming up with something creative, even in everyday moments. I
got some really interesting food this last trip.
Like what?
Well, that night we went to Border Grill, and I had that the salad with the mixed quinoa grains and the.
Oh yeah, well you eat colorful stuff.
I do.
My food is brown because that's the way you fry it. I mean, even that night I had a skirt steak, which with all the seasoning, man, it was delicious. And I had it with black beans and rice. And there's just nothing really interesting about the color of the presentation of that food.
Yeah, my salad had like really green, like buttery lettuce, and then there were the black quinoa seeds on there. There was butternut squash. There was a lime vinaigrette dressing. It was really colorful. I mean, there were like the warm and cool colors complementing each other. And they gave us those lovely tortilla chips and the 3 different salsas.
Yes.
And what I liked is that there was a green salsa in there. And that also added some color. I got some pictures of that as well with my beer, of course. And the beer was brown. My beer bottles are brown.
Well, that kind of goes back to your first photos. We were at Hard Rock at the Hard Rock Hotel in Las Vegas, in a place called Culinary Dropout, which we really loved.
Yes.
We were outside on the patio and it was dark, so we didn't have good light, but there were little strings of lights and you had your wine glass there and you found a nice composition with the wine and the background lighting.
It worked, yeah.
It worked, but it also kind of started your composition and your eye towards how can I take something common right in front of me and make something interesting out of it?
Yeah, and menus and, little those little cards they put on the table with the specials, candle holders. There are all kinds of things. Every restaurant has its own theme in there, and often that is reflected on just little condiments and decor on the tables. You can use that to stage your photos.
Well, what I found is you use interesting colors. You use elements that are already there, but you kind of build your background.
I do.
Based off of the menu, based off of, sometimes we'll use my iced tea or a beer or wine glass, whatever, in the background of the food. And you like to order food that's colorful.
I do, which is one of the reasons why the beer and the iced tea make a good background, because it gives you a neutral background. And if you're taking your photo low down close to the table, having the glasses standing behind there often obscure, a busy background where you've got movement or people or somebody's hand or elbow sticking out from a different table. So I actually use them as screens, as a backdrop.
And that kind of leads into, we've done some shows, particularly episode 60, on how to use photographic composition with art and design elements. And what we were talking about is how to build a story. We broke down our art elements, color, shape, line, texture, and space, and then also design principles for putting balance and contrast, whether you're going to have movement or a pattern or something for emphasis. And you put all of that into basically your food photography shots when we go out to eat.
I never really think about it like that.
You don't think about it, but this is what I observe when I watch you do it.
Oh, are you watching me?
Well, I can't eat until you're finished, so
that's
I have
true.
to watch.
He has to watch until he can get his food.
You're doing this very carefully. Maybe you're not thinking about it in these terms, but you are looking for color. You're looking for lines. If there's texture there, you can use it. You'll look for that as well. But at the same time, you're also looking for your balance and your contrast.
Yes.
Because you will move things around, and sometimes you'll ask us to move things either in or out of the background because you're looking for those elements to align.
Yeah, that's true.
But I don't think you think about it consciously that way.
I really don't. When you were going through this list, I thought, I don't think about these things.
But if you look at your photos, they all do that. And I've watched you as you're doing your compositions. You're doing that. You're definitely looking for colors.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm not arguing with you. It's not a conscious thing. I guess I just kind of stack things and I feel my way through a photo as I'm setting it up.
As you're doing that stuff, that's why I'm making notes and we share that on podcasts.
There we go.
So there's techniques that we'll use and we want to come back and bring those to folks as well. But we've also looked at a little bit occasionally on the business side. The whole idea behind this podcast to begin with really wasn't in mind for people who are professional photographers. It was in mind for people who are enthusiasts, but maybe occasionally want to make some money or maybe want to move into something that's a bit more lucrative with their photography. That was kind of like the whole idea of the photo flunky. That was me. In other words, I'm not here to be super professional like some of the folks that I really do admire. And that's because I don't want to live the lifestyle where I have to travel all the time to take photographs on someone else's schedule or budget.
No, I understand that completely. I thought I was the flunky.
No, that's me.
Oh.
But it doesn't mean that I don't want to earn some money, and it doesn't mean that I don't earn money from it. Sometimes things work out much better than others. I've been able to sell some prints for really good change.
Yeah.
And I've had some inquiries about things. Some maybe were for photo prints or prints that I've already made or photos that I've already made. Some were for assignments. And typically when I'm contacted for an assignment, I really don't want to do it. I don't want to have clients to go off and do a shoot.
I understand that.
Tell me what you understand.
Clients, when they're paying money, they get to call the shots, which is reasonable. I mean, that's what you expect. When I'm enjoying my photography or setting something up, if somebody likes something I've done and they want to buy it, no problem. But I don't want to be told how to take my photos. And it's just as simple as that. It's not even arrogance. It's just I like to do what I like to do. And I don't want to be told how to do it. I don't mind suggestions. But you don't get that with a client. They're paying money and they get to call the shots. I would be quite happy with a client who likes something that's already there. Well, there you go. Then we can discuss. But I don't want to take orders from somebody.
And that was kind of really what was in my mind. I've done assignments for other people before, and I've done a couple of weddings, which I really did not want to do, but those were for family, and I was kind of begged into them. And I've had other people that wanted me to come over and do portraits for them. And I thought, I feel very uncomfortable doing things where I'm not the one that has a creative vision behind it.
I understand that.
Now,
okay.
and don't get me wrong, there are photographers who are hired specifically for their creative vision and how they apply it to somebody else's needs. Overall, I really don't want to have to align my schedule to someone else's. I want to do what I want to do. And then if somebody's interested in what I've done, I'm happy to make some sales. And that comes in a form of, requests for prints, requests for photo usage or licensing. And then there are occasionally requests for photography services. In other words, where somebody wants to hire you as kind of as a work for hire photographer.
Mm-hmm.
And we discussed that on episode 59, if you'd like to go back and take a listen to that one. All of these shows I'm talking about, you can go find at williambeam.com/episode and then the number. So it'll just say williambeam.com/episode 59.
Just like that.
Yeah,
Easy.
really simple. Isn't that creative of me?
Yes.
We had a number of discussions about social media too.
We did, because social media is just part of life now, whether it's for business, for personal socializing, or just keeping up with people, or just a place to share things. Social media is very few people don't have it now.
But it's also constantly changing.
That's true.
So what worked for you and the advice that was given maybe a year ago may no longer be relevant.
Yeah.
One of the things that we learned about was on Instagram. Some of you may have already heard this before. Talked about a shadow ban.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not entirely positive what this means, but I think what happened is Instagram got tired of people who were just pasting lists of hashtags or reusing the same hashtags over and over again. They just stopped showing those photos to a lot of people. And I think what they want you to do is be creative on the spur of the moment, at least at this point in time. That's why I was just sharing photos from our most recent trip with 3 or 4 hashtags I just happened to think up, that seemed relevant to what we were doing or where we were. And those actually got some nice results. I didn't have a large following because this was a new account that we just put up, but it worked. Whereas some of the stuff that I'd been doing with a larger following in the past kind of really died off.
I think we all had, well, most of us had that. I mean, I saw my stuff decline to half the reach, and I think it was somewhere around May of this year. You can actually see on the stats how it just dropped. I mean, it's never really got back up where it is now. I said to you the other night, I kind of don't mind, because one of the kickbacks from that change was that I used to get a lot of these silly, like for a like or buy followers, and these spammy people coming and commenting. There are very, very few. I've seen that they're a little bit more on the uptick now again suddenly. But what did really tick me off with the shadow ban thing is that, I made up my own little hashtags that I started using. So they weren't common ones. And I've got 5 or 6 of them, one of which is my actual account ID. And I'd copy and paste those into the beginning, because those were all mine. And then I'd put, a few relevant hashtags for whatever I was posting. And yeah, my stuff got hidden, and I had to, now it means that I don't get to put them all up, or I have to go and rearrange the order, which is really a pain in the butt. And I think it's silly, because it's not like I was taking commonly used hashtags. They're actually ones that I created, with my own little sayings and little names and nicknames that I've given, terms that I've applied to things that I talk about. I'm not feeling the love for that silliness.
And like I said, it's constantly changing. We did an episode 78. And it was 5 tips to get more out of your social media engagement. But one of the things that really matters, I think, is we kind of threw in a bonus, was to have fun with your account. Because if you're just chasing numbers, you can get numbers, but they may not be engaged people.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people out there that want to do a like for a like. And if you don't follow them back, then suddenly they'll drop off.
Yes.
And it's just really not worth chasing someone who's not interested in who you are and what you're doing. I have more fun, I think, with a very small audience on some of these social media sites than if I were trying to manage 80,000 people and only 20 of them responded when I posted something.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think it gets personal. Also, when you have a smaller audience, you have time to go and interact on their things, because if somebody follows me, I go and check out the profile and stuff of every single person who follows me. If somebody follows, I go and have a look, because if they're interested in my stuff, I might be interested in theirs. And whether or not I follow them back, if I like some random things of theirs, I'll leave a comment, but I'll actually go and visit their page. I believe in being intimate and personal with the followers. I like the virtual face-to-face engagement.
It's much more fun when you've got people that are engaging with you rather than just having a lot of numbers there and people you don't even know.
Yeah.
That's me. I've got to be honest. I have kind of backed away from some of my social media. I've actually stopped really participating in my personal Facebook for a while, because honestly, it was getting so nasty that I just didn't want to deal with it. I found I got a lot less stress without being on Facebook. I've still got the page out there for William Beem Photography, and I want to share with that and engage with folks there, specifically on photography. But that helps me kind of get away from a lot of the political views, a lot of the anger that some people seem destined to share on social media, then it just.
Yeah, I've been off with Facebook for pretty much since the beginning of the year. I've got maybe a small handful of posts that have gone up, and usually just a close selected audience. I don't use Facebook, personal Facebook anymore either, only the pages. So,
and that's not necessarily a recommendation, but what we've found is to get more enjoyment out of social media, we're kind of limiting our audience to topics that we're enjoying and are not offensive to anybody.
Yeah.
At least I certainly hope not. We also have not just the creative side, not just the social side. We also occasionally talk about some of the emotional aspects of photography. And episode 80, we had a nice discussion of how to stop hating your own portrait. Photographers are the worst about this. They happy to take pictures of anyone, and someone complains, "Oh, you look fine, you look great." Then you put the photographer on the other side of the camera, and suddenly it's like, "Oh no."
Yeah.
I've seriously had to get used to this. And you want a lot of family photos, and
I do.
And you've heard me, I look horrible in that photo. Lately, though, I think I've gotten to the point where I was like, you know what? I go up there, I smile, and
Lee's happy.
And Lee's happy, but you know what? You're not judging me the way I'm judging myself.
Absolutely not. I don't know what you complain about.
Everybody's got their own little insecurities, I think, and when they're frozen in time, it can certainly be, it can be in your face. But you know what? You are who you are, and this is how you look, so you may as well enjoy it. But we've also got some discussion in there, is like how you can avoid having problems with, hating your own portrait, depending upon lens distortion or unflattering light and a few other issues. But as far as the self-conscious issues, we kind of discuss what some of those are and kind of how to get over them.
Yeah, that's true.
I think some of the creative things that we look at, though, are a little bit different than I see in many other places. We will look specifically like at topics like episode 92, photographing for color. And this, I think, kind of comes up in your food photography quite naturally. But you also do it with a lot of your other photography as well. We talked about, how to look for your dominant color, how to use your color contrast or a splash of color. We talked about the emotions of color, or sometimes, something that's just plain pretty.
Yeah. I mean, even when I'm putting my running gear together, I think about how I move. Like, for example, this last weekend, I knew photos were going to get taken, and I had to stack my colors because I know that my arm is sometimes going to be, covering up part of the shirt that I'm wearing. So I wanted to make sure that those colors didn't, blend in, but not quite blend. It's silly things that I look at with colors. I've always been like that with color.
And I think this is something that works in any genre of photography. If I really enjoy portraits, my desire is when I work with a model, I want to make sure he or she really doesn't have a lot of patterns or prints. I really want to see the color maybe on something plain.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you don't want something too busy that's going to distract from your subject.
Exactly. The color, I want the color in there, but the focus really needs to be on the person that I'm photographing. But the same thing is when I'm traveling, then I've got a lot of freedom. I can look and find colors like, an interesting wall with a sign that contrasts on it. What do you look for when you're looking for color in your photography?
Usually there's contrasting color, but sometimes not necessarily. I mean, for example, with some of the sunsets, there was one with there was a line of airplanes waiting, to taxi off and take off on the runway, and they're kind of moving up in the queue. And most airplanes, I've noticed, or at least the domestic ones, have blue detail on them and a blue tail, even if there are other colors in with it, which was pretty cool because we had this blazing red-orange sunset and everything else was pretty dark, but you could still make out the blue in there. I thought that the contrast was really pretty. I look for contrasting colors, but sometimes just having the rich color of the sky with some city lights or, the silhouettes of the landscape or cityscape is enough.
Also, I've noticed in your product photography, you will also use colors that aren't necessarily contrasting, but they're analogous. In other words, there are various shades and tints of, let's say, green.
Yeah, I did, because I've did quite a series of fall photos or photos with a fall theme. So I had some browns and oranges and just neutral kind of beige colors and, different textures as well. Because I was looking for a little splash. And then I'd put in my little splash of red or my, my accent color. Maybe it would be a little hint of yellow or a sprinkle of would it have some dried wheat sheets that I put down. And it all kind of works together. Yeah, sometimes I just have the colors sort of gradually working together without any major contrast.
So there's a lot of ways to use colors, and we hope that we can give you something or some ideas out of that episode. And another thing that you really like to do, we discussed this in episode 96, is don't overlook detailed photos when you travel. by detail photos, we're talking about not necessarily the big grand shot that you might see when you're at a travel location. It's not necessarily Cinderella Castle at Magic Kingdom. It's not the Eiffel Tower, but it's little details that still speak to part of the story that you're visiting there.
Yes.
We did that. Let's say I've talked about Disney, I don't know how many times. We're probably going to talk about that a lot less in the future. You walk down Main Street, you see the castle. That's what everybody concentrates on. But there are a lot of little details, even the lampposts, the signs, some of the things that tell part of the story, the food that you're encountering when you're on travel. And in Las Vegas, you were shooting details as well.
Yeah, what details did I do in Vegas? I'm trying to think. You know, I do these things without thinking. I was actually trying to get some bigger pictures and not so much, not that I didn't want to get detail, but I realized on that podcast when we were discussing that I sometimes miss the bigger picture and I only have the details. So I was actually trying to go a bit wider this last time.
Well, you were certainly collecting details when we were at House of Blues.
Oh, yeah.
Because you love the details there. But what we were talking about in this episode is you want to tell a story and you want to go from small to big or big to small. In other words, yes, you've got the grand event or the grand centerpiece of where you're at, but you also want to tell the story of the smaller things that really make up part of your experience. You know, it could be, we had turn down service at Aria and they left little chocolates there for us.
Oh yeah, I got a picture of those.
Yeah, I knew you would.
But,
but that was part of the story. It's like we came back from dinner and we got the nice turn down service. They left us some chocolates and we also had the feeling that someone broke into our room, but that's a different story.
Turn down service. Yeah, well, I guess you could have taken a photo of, you know, the turn down and the robes and the slippers and the trays next to on the side tables by the bed. But to me, it just told the story by taking the chocolates and doing a close-up shot. There
was something very specific for you that you took a shot of. Most of our stay was at Mandalay Bay, and we had kind of a corner suite. And there was a little spot in there next to the glass where you just like to curl up every night.
I did, and every day.
And that was, for some reason, it was next to the window. You had a nice view of, you know, going down the strip and going over the city towards the back, not towards the airport, but, you know, the backside of the strip. And there was, you know, a train going by there every now and then.
I love trains.
But you really loved that spot. I did. It would turn out to be your place to relax when we were in the room.
I just wanted to sit there and, you know, there's something ever since I can remember as a small child there, I like to walk around barefoot and I like to sit on the floor. I'll get some cushions. We did grow up with furniture, so I wasn't poor or anything. It's just something that I really enjoy. And I had a really nice, comfortable space where I could do that, but without being unsociable. I had my view and I could still speak to you from wherever you were in the room, even if you were just sitting behind, you know, the wall on the other side.
But one of the things that you mentioned is that you wanted to make a book out of our photographs from this trip.
I do.
And that was part of the story that goes in the book.
Well, it is because that's the spot where I went. You know, I'd come in if I was worried about anything, if I was relaxing or mulling over something or just wanted to read, I went to my spot. It was like, I guess, like a dog will dig a hole for comfort. That was my little hole.
And what we're talking about is that, yes, you can get the big shots going down the strip with the wonderful hotels and resorts. Yeah, we got the Bellagio fountain shots again, but that little spot will mean more to you, I think, than those larger image shots.
It will, and I got some pictures of my spot with my cushions there. It was just, now anybody looking at that photo would think, did you click the shutter by mistake?
But this is a photo book for you.
This is very specifically, I know what it means.
And that's kind of what we're talking about with the detail photos. Some of them may be personal memories just for you, and, you know, someone asks about it, it's a conversation piece, you can talk about them. Other times the detail shots could be somebody who's interested and say, oh, where did you find that? Because, again, going back to Disney, we found some spots there because there's tons of little knickknacks all the way around the parks there.
Yeah.
And we did some food photography next to this little wrought iron skull that kind of embedded in some stones. And we've already had some people ask, you know, it's like, well, where did you find that at?
Yeah.
They're just curious, you know, it's like we found something they didn't. And it doesn't matter where you go, there are going to be some details that are part of your story, but yet might be intriguing for people who either haven't gone to that destination yet or have gone and didn't find what you found.
That's true. Yeah.
If you're going to go shoot the Kentucky Derby, yes, you want to get shots of the race, but you also want to get shots kind of like at a wedding, you know, the preparations before the event. And what are people wearing? You know, the ladies with their hats, you know, the drinks and cocktails that they have. Those are all part of the story of the event. So that's what we mean when we say don't overlook the detail photos when you travel. That kind of brings us up to where we are. We've got, this is now our 100th episode. I think we've covered a lot of ground, but yet we have kind of hit a bit of a theme of what we want to talk about. It isn't necessarily talking about what our latest shoot was like. It isn't reviewing other people's photos, but we found something, I think, where we talk about creativity. We talk about, I think, the practical aspects of when we go out and do our photography. And we talk about how to share.
We do. Well, I think we've gone from, talking about having a hobby as a photographer or doing something with photography, moving through, we've evolved to living with photography as part of your life.
That really does kind of sum it up. So that's the tale of where the Photo Flunky started and how we've gotten here so far. And one of the things, we like to say is like we want to go off and create, share it, and celebrate. And that's pretty much what we do. We have a good time doing photography as part of our lives, not just something separate that we tacked on. It's even if we're not taking photos, we're still looking at scenes
That's true.
and kind of discussing them. In the future, I expect that you're going to hear more of what we've been discussing so far, more on creativity, more on how to share and celebrate your photography. But also, I'm hoping to bring in some interviews on occasion and maybe get some other input rather than just our own.
That will be fun.
We don't have anybody lined up yet. It's a matter of something that I've been thinking about. I've been getting some of the gear ready so I can do some interviews online. And we would really love to know if there's something else that you would like to hear. So please go to williambeem.com/episode 100 and leave us a comment. Tell us what you think. Tell us if there's something that you'd like to hear, and just let us know your feedback. We'd really be happy to have it. Thank you very much for listening to the Photo Flunky Show, episode 100. We would love it if you would go to iTunes and give us a review. You can get there easily. Just go to williambeem.com/iTunes. It'll take you to the page. And honestly, give us a review. We'd love to know what you think. Leave us a comment. We'd love to know what you think. Just give us a little bit of feedback and tell us what you would like to hear in the future. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you, and we want to plan on keep on going. See you next week.